I really like the crawl, walk, run approach. Introduce people to the process and just keep adding, a little bit at a time. It's a really fine dance you have to do between the business people and the security people. I'm not coming in and saying my way is the right way and you need to do exactly what I say. It's like, how can I work with you to make what you're doing better?
Again, I'm really excited to dive into our conversation today. Our goal with the series is to spotlight security professionals like yourself for doing incredible work behind the scenes. Can you talk about your current role? What does your day-to-day look like?
Sure. Yeah. I can start out a little bit about myself. So my name is Ken Sheldon. I work for Basis Technologies. Technically my role is a senior security analyst, but I feel like my title doesn't really encapsulate everything that I do. I have a hand in risk management, third-party risk management, policy work, governance. I act as SME for the company in various security topics. I run our yearly audits, kind of one-off projects. I do UAR work, internal audit. So really across the board, I'm involved in a lot of stuff. As far as my day-to-day, our company is kind of on the smaller side, I'd say. We're about 1,000 people. So, we try to have different projects going on. Lately, we just got done with our SOC 2 audit. So now that we're in November and December, which tends to be a little slower for advertising, a little bit, we kind of look towards planning for next year. So what kind of tools we want, what's our budget look like. We've been reviewing our controls implementation. Right now, we basically focus on the CIS controls and NIST CSF. So right now we're reviewing our controls and seeing, how many we've implemented from the CIS control set, where we can make improvements, what can we bring online next year. And then we're also reviewing all the projects that we've done all for the year. As far as like a weekly thing, we do have a kind of a calendar that we created of different tasks that we have going on. So it's like every first of the month, we're looking at role transfers and making sure that people who got hired did their compliance training. We're making sure that our UARs get done every month. People who left the company are out of certain systems and new people are in properly. On kind of a quarterly basis is when we do IR testing and BCDR testing. We do tabletops with every department. We also do risk meetings with each department every month, and that also includes meeting with our security engineer. So we kind of hit both sides of the topics there, both governance and the engineering side. And then yearly, basically we're ensuring that we're reviewing all of our policies and that everybody gets a chance to kind of have their comments and see if there's any changes that need to be made for the next year. And then we're also ensuring that, all the different things we have in our policies we've done, like, do we have our inventories? Are they updated? Different diagrams updated? Have they been looked at? Has all our different documentation been looked at? So that's kind of what we do on a yearly basis.
To learn a little more about you, we want to capture the journey on how this space is evolving and how you are adjusting to it.
I've been in IT since about 2015, starting in IT support, kind of worked my way up the ladder. I got my first role in security and cybersecurity in 2018 as a consultant. I worked as a kind of a fractional CISO. I did PCI audits, ISO audits, and then I started my role here at Basis in the winter of 2021. Kind of the antithesis of why they hired me is that they didn't really have too much of a security program. So they're looking for somebody to come in who had experience building out a program from basically scratch.
So what was it like when you joined in, and what were some of the nuanced challenges that you faced at Basis?
The biggest challenge I faced was not so much that it was hard to set up like a risk management program, and starting a risk register. That's not too hard. And it's not too hard to start cataloging, all your third-party vendors and starting to rate them. That's not too hard, but it's getting everybody else on board. And, you come into a company that's existed for 20 years that basically hasn't had a security program before. There's a lot of people who are like, well, this means extra work for me, and this is something new, and I don't like new things. So I think a lot of soft people skills come into play when you're coming in to a company and trying to build things out. So I think it really behooves a security person such as myself to come in and make it feel like, I'm not coming in and saying my way is the right way and you need to do exactly what I say. It's like, how can I work with you to make what you're doing better and more secure? So not only can we, save ourselves and kind of have, make sure that we know that we're protected, but also that our customers know that if they work with us, that we're secure. So I think it took a lot of finding people who kind of knew what issues we had and wanted to do better. So I kind of call them like security superstars. So, I have a certain set of people that I know in the organization that are like-minded like me, and they want to do better with security. And I have like a couple of people in each department that kind of like are my, preachers to what I'm trying to do. So I was very quick to identify which people I wanted to work with that were going to help me penetrate each department and try to start getting things to be more secure.
So how did you go about ensuring the tasks that were asked were done? Second, building a system and understand the problems that you had that a system is needed.
I really like the crawl, walk, run approach. So, anything that we kind of brought online was, let's start doing something small first and let's build upon it. One of the first things that we really did when I joined was, they had somewhat of a policy library, and it was kind of in disarray. Nobody had, approved things properly. There was different stakeholders that had never seen them before. So, one of the things we started out there was, well, we have this policy library, and let's introduce these policies to everybody, and let's have everybody take a look for a month and see what they think, write some comments on it. Let's see, what things are doable within this year. Maybe write some comments of like what's doable in the next year. Let's start a plan of like what's feasible given the time that we have. Because, the one thing that I would say with my company is that we're a lot of the software developers and operations people, they're very much engaged more so with developing features for our software rather than thinking about security. So it was like, there's no room in that timeline. So, if there's a small little sliver here and here, let's try to insert some security things, in your timeline. And then as time goes on, as you kind of see what we're doing, then we can kind of plan some more time for fixing things in the future. The next important thing for me was to do a baseline risk assessment. Like, for instance, we were using the CIS controls and NIST controls. Let's do a gap assessment. Let's look at the controls of what we want to get to. And thankfully, what I really like about the CIS controls is that they're ranked, 1 to 3 for some company that's just starting, a 2 for somebody who's a little bit more mature, and 3 for a more mature. So we started going through just the number 1 controls for the first year. And let's do a gap assessment, see where we're at, and then see what we can bring online. And we were kind of looking at, based on all the different findings that we had of gaps compared to the CIS controls, what are some easy ones we can knock out like super fast, like complying with lockout settings. That's just a really simple thing for IT to go and change. And then kind of rank things, how complicated they are, and plan out for the future. So that's basically been my process since I've started, is kind of continuously auditing our capabilities and controls and what we can implement based on people's schedules and budgets and other things like that.
So how has the program evolved? What's the before and after picture today?
We're at the point where we're having scheduled things happen. So it kind of takes, you don't have to put your mind as much into it, because you can go to your calendar and say, this task is supposed to come up next. This is what's coming up next month. And we have things scheduled. So it's not a guesswork anymore. It's like people kind of know the plan. So it makes it easier for everybody. So, I would say probably the biggest example of like that kind of plan coming into fruition was how we do SOC 2. So when we first started doing a SOC 2 audit, nobody had really gone through an audit before. They didn't really know, how to get evidence for an audit like that, what was expected by the auditor, the timing for it, how fast you need to get things. Every year we've made successive updates to that process to now it's so ingrained into people that this year for SOC 2, I hardly had to do anything. I just had to set up, I have a kind of like a project management Excel spreadsheet I made up with everybody's assignments for the different controls that SOC 2 requires and which evidence they need to submit to. I set up a folder, and now I can basically just hand that out and people do it for everything. And all I have to do at the end before I hand in evidence to the auditor is just review everything, make sure they got everything. And this year was like perfect. I didn't have any issues. Everybody was spot on. So it's kind of like, start taking those baby steps, introduce people to the process, and just keep adding, a little bit at a time. They'll get the hang of it. They'll finally understand kind of why you're doing what you're doing. And then it just becomes an ingrained process, kind of like you're building a machine, and, you got all the parts together. It's well oiled, you turn it on, and you can just let it run. So I feel like that's kind of the direction we're going. We're like really close to the point where like all these different functions are kind of becoming semi-automated too. So like people have to even think less about them. It's just kind of done, and it just requires somebody to look at them at the end.
Right. That would be the execution bit, right? But what about the policies that you have, the controls, and like number of frameworks that you're compliant with today, right? How has that evolved?
Being a security minded person, I always want to put in more controls than I think a lot of other people really want. So I think it's a really fine dance you have to do between the business people and the security people, because you can't put in so much security that you prevent business from happening. And the business people can't take away all the security controls, because then, security is not protecting everything. So you kind of have to go back and forth. So that's always kind of a struggle, going back and forth. As far as like our evolution with different control frameworks, I feel like we've been pretty satisfied with what NIST, CSF, and CIS offers us. However, being that we do deal with like PII and stuff, we do have to deal with some privacy frameworks, but for the most part, those ones aren't really all too different than what we're already doing with CIS and with NIST. So it doesn't really put too much more burden on us. In the future, one of the things we'd like to shoot for is an ISO 27001 certification, because we'd like to go more international with our business. But, considering how prescriptive that particular framework is, I don't think we're ready quite yet. It would take that particular one would take more commitment from the business, because it's like so prescriptive. It's either you do it or you don't do it. And right now we're kind of like in between with a lot of the controls, even with CIS, where we have like partial implementation. So it's still kind of a work in progress. But, I guess one of the reasons I'm kind of thankful that we're not in a regulated business is that we don't have to do like a lot of really tough things unless we really want to. So I guess that's kind of a double-edged sword too.
Got it. So how do you go about internal communication within the team, and how are you showing progress today?
Yeah, so since our team is so small, we kind of talk very casually. We just have like a group chat in Teams. So we're always talking. I wouldn't say we kind of have formal meetings where we kind of go like, this is red and this is green and back and forth, because it's always kind of happening. So we'll have a meeting between all the security people, and we'll kind of review everything as a whole and kind of see where our progress is at. And that's where we'll see, we'll go through each of our individual projects, rate how they went, if they need to be done in the future, where we can improve, things of that kind of nature. So for like the higher ups, we do have some KPIs and KRIs that we keep track of. Basically like how many controls we have implemented compared to how many CIS controls there are. So we have that tracked for full compliance with a control and also partial compliance with controls. We have critical risks that we report to the CIO. And besides that, we also report like our vulnerability outlook. So how many vulnerabilities do we have compared to how many systems we have? I would say we're kind of more informal, and we don't really report too much higher than the CIO. They delegate to us the power to do what we need to do.
Have you not had the itch to try out anything AI or even automation for that matter?
The problem is for us is that we have a very limited budget. So it's like, if we're going to go spend 20, 30,000 on a tool, it has to do something special for us. So there's a lot of tools that we'd really like to buy and use. I think one of the things on our wish list that we've wanted for a long time is an IAM solution that's overarching for everybody. Because that's something we still struggle with, is some access management stuff, because we kind of use SSO in some places and other places just use name and password. And I'd love to have just like one solution that encapsulates everything. So that's one of the things we're always kind of struggling with.
What do you like to do outside of work? How do you relax post work during your holidays?
I have a lot of hobbies, a lot. As you can see behind me, that's a whole bunch of music gear. That's probably my biggest hobby. I've been a DJ and music producer since 2012 in Chicago, mostly making like electronic music. So that's like a big passion of mine. I'm also into electronics DIY. So I buy like circuit boards and PCBs and components, and I'll build my own electronic instruments. I'm also really big into gardening. So I garden during the summer. This year I grew 4 different tomato plants, 12 different peppers, a whole bunch of different herbs, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. And I also got in this year into making my own wine. So I've been brewing my own wine this summer. I had about 3 successful batches, and I have another 4 that are fermenting right now. So
wow, I did not think I would come off this call saying life goals, but yeah, that's life goals for me. Anything that you would like to share as a quote?
Like I said about finding superstars, I think if you're able to find like-minded people at your organization to help you with security, I think that's really the key to success.